So I'm making up a batch of these darn things, and the steels need this 12x1 reverse thread tap, and fortunately I've got all the stuff I need here with the 7/16 drill. But I've been doing a little bit different technique on the ends, where I've been taking a face cut and then cutting a chamfer. With these insert tools, it actually gets a pretty good finish on that steel, you know. So I ran a bunch this morning. I didn't turn the camera on. Do this by eye, you know, it's not the best, but trying to get it square is sometimes fun. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to get a mill, so I can just take a face mill and just cut these right off, and I'll increase the quality there. The other thing is, as I'm getting through these, it's becoming apparent that I have to upgrade my lathe too. I think I'm going to work for a small mill, but also I don't know if it's going to happen in the next couple of months, but I want to see if I can get to a CNC lathe, you know. The reason is, when I start doing the bushings, to get them consistent from part to part, yeah, I mean, I can do it, but I really need to do it faster. So anyway, quick update on that. So now this is an old Husqvarna 288 XP, and apparently has never really been worked on before. Well, I'm sure it's had maintenance items. It's a logger saw, and it's been running for a very, very long time. Still runs pretty well. It's got some issues I have to solve, and I've been peeling off layers of dirt and grime, and I don't know. I'll probably spend a whole lot more time just trying to uncover the saw than actually doing any work on it. But it kind of brought a concept to my mind. Those saws out there that have really passed the test of time. And those are saws that were useful long after they were obsolete in the marketplace. And the 288s, you know, the reason why they kind of rise to the top for me is because of guys like this. These are still out there making money for people, you know. And power-wise, they're competitive with the big saws you can buy today. Maybe a little heavy, but still, it packs a punch, you know. And this whole series of saw was replaced by the 385, and then 390, you know, in the Husqvarna lineup. But they were around for a long time. I'm going to put in a fuel line and a tank vent, try to clean it up a little bit, but my hunch is, based on the compression it has, this saw run just fine. And I guess in the inventory of this fella, it's one of 4 of them. And they were all bought new and just used and used and used and used. Now, he's a logger. He's not a full-time guy, but these saws get used a lot every year. I guess he really gets his season going now more for firewood. He's kind of got out of the actual logging business. And, you know, it heats up during the late summer and goes through the fall. And then they get put away because he's got a real job. But my God, this saw has been around for a long, long time. It's still a useful saw. And when I fix it, do a little bit of maintenance on it, it'll go right back out there and run. And, you know, parts are getting tougher to find for them. You know, they're obsolete, but you can still get parts for these things. You know. Here's my top 4 saws that, in my mind, passed the test of time. And again, that being designs that were useful long after they were taken from the marketplace, obsoleted by more, you know, relevant modern designs. And I think the standard bearer for that whole concept is the Homelite XL. They were in production for a long time, and believe it or not, there's still people out there using those darn things that just don't die. Very, very simple, very reliable. Now this is kind of a higher tech John thread. It's a 70, you know, and it was a rugged design. They didn't make quite as many of them. It was sort of an expensive saw for its day, but there's a lot of those out there still cutting wood. And of course the 288, 281 series, as I was working on in the shop, and the 372 series. You just can't ignore them. Now, I'm not as much of a fan as the new ones, the X-Torques, as I was the original edition. So this saw right here represents the original editions that came to the marketplace in the mid-90s, and they stopped producing them 2000, I don't know, 9 or 10, that time frame. But a good original edition 372 is, in my mind, pound for pound and dollar for dollar, still one of the best saws ever produced. And there's sure a lot of those out there, and a lot of those are still in use. You can make money with one of those. It's competitive, certainly, with the current 372s, you know, lighter, same kind of power. And I think they were more reliable, just a humble opinion. So what do you think? And there's one other saw that I have to throw into this mix. It's just going to bother everybody, but I'm going to do it anyway. And in line with the Homelite XL, I don't currently have a sample, but I think that Husqvarna 455 and 460, that saw, I think that's going to be the next Homelite XL, in the sense that those things just simply don't die. They're going to be out there and being used long after people are tired of cutting with them. I just think this saw right here is just pretty much case in point, you know. This just had hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of use, but it still runs, you know. It's got a few issues now because the tank leaks. At least that's what the guy thinks. In fact, what it is the fuel line and the tank vent, and that fuel line is just about like putty now. But this saw right here typifies that whole 200 class series of Husqvarnas, you know. Just that basic case layout, cylinder, muffler, carburetor in one plane. And basically you can just pick that whole thing right up and out of there. Very, very, very easy saws to work on if you have to do rebuilds and things like that, you know. Just a great design. Simple, effective, make good power. Check out that throttle. Kind of pushes down. It's not getting to full throttle, which is probably not a bad thing. And this was before they put carburetor boots on. It still has a block for a manifold. And I mean, there was reasons why they went to the rubber boot, you know.
But you can't argue the fact that even without that new anti-vibe rubber boot, doesn't transmit heat, the darn thing can cut a lot of wood in a hurry. Now this class would include the 61, 272, 281, 288, but also back in the 200s include the 254s, the 266, the 262s. Just as a whole bunch of saws that fall into that category, and they all basically have the same layout. And I can tell you, if you're a person wanting to get into restoring old saws or getting into the hobby, this is a great series to start with. And that's not just the 288, but the entire 200 series of Husqvarnas. It's just great saws to work with. They're easy. For the most part, you can get the hard parts you need to make them run. And when you're done, you have a useful saw. A younger person's not going to care about the anti-vibe as much as an older person will. And no, you're not going to get rich. It's not something where you can take one of these and turn it into money. There's a group of folks out there where if they can't figure out how to turn a buck on it, they're not interested. It made me laugh when that mentality got into the Chinese kits. I'm not going to go there, but who's going to spend money like that on a clone when you can get something like this for the same kind of money and have it all OEM? But that's just a sideshow. I mean, you get into the clone stuff because you want to get into clones. You don't get in there to make money. That's just an aside. But on these, no, you're not going to get yourself rich fixing old 200 series Husqvarnas, because being an obsolete saw, the marketplace is limited. And you're building saws for yourself, and that's part of the hobby. Just like with the clone saws, the hobby side of it is more what's driving you than the dollars and cents side of it. What a great series to work on, and what an effective saw when you're done. Can't recommend these more. These are awesome.
How about 272s? This one right here has been modded just a little bit, but it's a 200 series saw. It has the same basic layout. If I pull the top cover, is that 288? I mean, really, they look the same, you know? A little different filter arrangement, but basically it's the same layout. That's a legitimate pro saw. And while I didn't put together a video yet on the 272s, I certainly did the chicken soup saw with a 254. And yet again, it has a very, very similar look and feel and layout, just smaller than that 288. There's another one in the class. And yes, we've done videos with those. And yet again, if I pull the cover, it's going to look very much the same as that 288 in terms of layout, just like the 272 did. These, you know, I'm not going to say that these passed the test of time, and that's really the premise of the video. And part of the requirement for me is a saw that not only survived, of which this one obviously has, but one that a person who is a professional could still use, or a person who's a homeowner would be perfectly happy with, and there's still parts available because so many of them were built. And the 288 fits into the category because this is a saw that it's not uncommon to see even now in the professional ranks. You know? One more. Look at this beast right here. Now, if you look at this one here, you're going to see that it actually is from yet an earlier design, you know? Just, I guess it's kind of like the big 394, 395 series was kind of from an earlier era than the 372s and the 390s. Well, the 298, even though it's numerically a 200 series saw, has more in common with the 2100 series than it does with the 200 series. You know, the oil and tank and the handle, and you know, the way the muffler is laid out. This really has a lot more in common with the earlier series of Husqvarnas. Now I've got a 65L, which we'll bring to the table at some point. But this one here is going to be a project for the summer. It's something I want to get running, you know. And I actually did get it running, but I need to put a fuel line in it. I need to put in some of the lines to the oil pump, you know, to make this useful. But
And the other thing about a saw like this, for a hobbyist, you really got to be willing to do the research to find the parts. These parts are hard to find at this level for this saw. Where a 288, there's still aftermarket support and there's still actually parts available. So this one, I'm not going to say fits into the category because you're not going to see a lot of these out in the pro ranks. Just simply won't, because they're not supportable. You know, great saw, a lot of fun, you know, very powerful, but doesn't fit that test because it's really not a viable option in today's world where that 288 would be. Well, here it is with probably a half hour's of compressed air. Well, it's part of the discovery process of picking my way through this saw to try to bring it back to serviceable. That's what's left of the anti-vibe springs. See that? It's obviously been broken for a very, very long time. But you know, the good news is they're still available. There's your part number right there, 5018147-02. Well, these things here you pretty much have to turn in with a special tool. And I've got one somewhere. The question is where. And while I'm here, let me see if I can't pick out that tank vent and see if I've got one of those, because I believe that's what's leaking, which is the reason why this is here, is because it was leaking gas profusely. This one goes back. This is for like the 372s and the later model ones. Has a different part number. Part number on the one for the 372s, 537092201, where the one for like the older style tanks on the 200 series is 5015731-01. That right there. So this is different, and you got to put that little piece in there. Not sure it matters what direction it goes. And what it looks to me like what happened on John's is that piece is gone. There's nothing in there. If you look, I don't know if you'll see, it's just a straight hole through there. I don't know if the camera will pick that up or not. And really this white piece right here is what blocks the gas. It really just slows it down, that's all it does. Fuel line. Get the fuel line in there. Yeah. That's a big ass filter. Now that line had not failed, but it was really gummy. I think I'm going to stick with that filter. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's huge. Now, another little deal with fuel line. The Husqvarna fuel line is actually a little bit larger in diameter than the standard stuff. And it behooves you to pay attention to that and to not use the generic line, but to actually go ahead and buy the genuine Husqvarna fuel line. And the part number on that is 581756202. Do it. Don't try the generic stuff, especially on these older saws. Sometimes it can be a little fun getting that started.
So I just grab that end
and pull it right through, you know. But while we're here, let me look at that other anti-vibe. Yeah, it's broken too. No kidding. I think the funny thing is that knowing the fella, he's going to go, wow, this thing runs better than it has in a long time. The reason is it's getting full throttle now, where when it first came here with the anti-vibes broken like that, it let that handle settle up to the chassis a little bit, so you couldn't get full travel with the throttle. So he's going to get a performance increase. Yep. Ran that right out of gas. I've got it tuned in the high 11s, and knowing where it goes, I'm going to leave it fat. So to those people who say, yeah, you can get that up in the mid 12s. Yeah, I probably could. But knowing where it's going, I'm going to leave that saw fat just the way it is. So anyway, there's a saw. Husqvarna 288 XP Lite. And you know, that saw is still in production in certain places of the world, like Brazil. But it's one of those designs that certainly passed the test of time, in that it's still a desired saw for a professional. You know, you can find a good clean 288. That's a good option. That's just about as good an option as a good clean 385. Now a 385 has better anti-vibe and, you know, a little bit lighter and quicker throttle response and stuff like that. So yeah, theoretically it's a better saw, but that 288 there, that'll hold its own.
It's no slouch. It'll cut some big wood if you give it a chance. So that's the end of this video. Talk to you later. Bye for now.